Next speaker is Jay Zellenmeyer, then Tom Fallick, then Stan Sorkin, David Bauer, Ken Carney, Scott Farguson. Mr. Zellenmeyer.
Senator Doyle, Representative Barron, members of the committee. I am the president of Ledgebrook Condominium Association, which is in Norwalk, Connecticut. We're a 25-building, 222-unit, 25-acre condominium that was built in the early 1970s, and that is an all-electric community. It was a great idea at the time, but it costs a lot of money. And I'm here to comment briefly, although not directly, on proposed bill number 5908, which I understand is a response to the governor's veto last year of House Bill 5248, which bans certain kinds of insulating materials. There's another bill that was just filed yesterday, raised bill number 6453, which is a repeat of last year's bill with a couple of minor modifications. My concern about this legislation is this. For the last 4.5 years, our association has been trying to find a way to reduce energy costs. Partly to save money, of course, but partly as a good community trying to save energy, trying to conserve energy. We have been working closely with the Connecticut Energy Efficiency Fund over that period of time and developed a comprehensive energy reduction program. One of the elements is re-insulating our 40-year-old buildings. As you can imagine, that's a very complex undertaking. We studied it for a couple of years, finally, with a consultant in the energy business, finally decided on the materials that we were going to use for our crawl spaces, our roofs, and our walls. We designed an insulating program. We submitted it to CEEF, which was very, very supportive and viewed our program very favorably. We're the first old condominium in Connecticut to even attempt to think about such things. And they, after a lot of study, CEEF, committed to providing us with very substantial cash incentives if we went forward with the program. Naturally, we had to finance this. We went to a bank and arranged financing. We put out RFPs to contractors. We got responses from contractors. We selected a contractor. And all of this is going on over a very long period of time. And then in January, last month, we learned that the material that we had selected to insulate our walls, which we thought was the best material on the market in terms of energy conservation. We were looking strictly at R values. Well, not strictly at R values, but also other kinds of impacts. But at R values, at cost, and the impact on the existing buildings had suddenly become unavailable in Connecticut, unlike the rest of the country, and where it had been used in Connecticut for many, many years. Somebody interpreted the existing legislation, which bans certain kinds of formaldehyde-based materials, as comprehending this material, which is called tripolymer, which includes water. And water has formaldehyde in it, as I'm sure all of you know, and therefore today it's banned. Our only option is to use a lower performing material, which will cost the same but provide significantly lower cost savings and will conserve significantly less energy. We've decided we need to proceed with the project because we've got deadlines from CEEF, we have deadlines from our bankers, our contractor won't hold their prices, and we are hoping that by the time we get around to doing the walls, we're going to do the crawl spaces and the roofs first, but by the time we get around to doing the walls, something will have changed in legislation so that we will be able to use the product that we believe is clearly the best and that everyone that we're dealing with supports as the best. And therefore, I'm here really to urge you to consider the on-the-ground needs and act quickly. The current proposed legislation 5908 simply directs the Department of Consumer Protection in consultation with the Department of Health and Energy or Departments of Health and Energy to promulgate regulations, promulgate some standards. We're confident that we can meet whatever those standards are, and we can proceed with our project in the most conservative, most energy efficient, most cost efficient way possible. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Any questions in the committee? Representative Barham.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it my interpretation of your testimony that you favor this bill because somehow you think that passage of a bill like this will revoke prior law that prohibits certain kinds of materials? Is that what you're suggesting?
The prior ban, as I understand it, and I'm not a technician, I'm not a scientist, I don't understand all the science that's involved here, but my understanding is that for many, many years, Connecticut law did not prohibit the use of this particular product, or at least that's the way it was interpreted. And I know, I've been told that it's been used in many buildings throughout the state, including some state office buildings, as insulating material. At some point in 2011, someone decided that this material, because the water that's used to make the material, which flows in, I mean, it's not a solid, it's an injectable foam, contains a certain amount of formaldehyde, like everything that has water in it has formaldehyde in it, and therefore it's no longer usable. The ban that is in place is a pretty broad one, but contains exception for urethane foam insulation or styrene foam insulation. It was really aimed at formaldehyde-based insulating materials. This is not a formaldehyde-based material. It simply contains some trace amounts of formaldehyde, or so I'm told by our contractor, our consultant, and CEEF. So what our hope is that standards will get promulgated. Our product will satisfy, the product we want to use will satisfy those standards, and we can use it.
I'm glad you brought that to our attention, because I was unaware that this bill was addressing something that potentially had been banned. So I guess your point is that by regulating it and coming up with certain controls, there'll be no question that this material is usable and won't meet the definition of the formaldehyde ban in the prior legislation.
Well, the prior law, or existing law in Connecticut, does ban very broadly formaldehyde-based insulation. That law, which was enacted in 1981, Section 29277 of the General Statutes, last year was the subject of 5248, which repealed it and imposed in its place a regulated structure specifying some particular Green Guard Environmental Institute regulations and other ASTM standards. Now, the governor felt, I guess, at least based on his veto message, that those standards weren't adequate. I don't know. I don't pretend to know. Again, my understanding is that the product that we want to use would have satisfied these standards. And the bill that was introduced yesterday, 6453, would have exactly the same effect. The major difference is that the original law contains an exception for urethane foam insulation and styrene foam insulation. 5248 removed those exceptions. 6453 puts them back, which was a concern of the American Chemical Institute, which urged the governor to veto the bill, which he did, but on different grounds. So I'm a little perplexed about exactly what's going on, but I want something to happen, and want it to happen as quickly as possible. And that's why I'm here, to, again, give you some real-world implications of what this is about, and to hope that I can encourage you to act sooner rather than later. The bill that's before you right now, 5908, doesn't have any substantive components at all. It simply directs the Commissioners of Consumer Protection in consultation with the Commissioners of Public Health and Energy and Environmental Protection to develop safety and certification standards. Would seem to me that that's the kind of thing that could be done rather quickly, so that we can get before the regulatory agencies and let them do what they're supposed to do, and we'll see how it comes out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions in the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Tyler Fisk. Is Tyler Fisk here? So we've got 3 people coming up, so hopefully we'll consolidate their comments. After this group, we have Richard Beyer, Robert Heffernan, Rafi Podolsky, Ben Zimmer, Brian Johnson, Peter Foote.
Okay. Good afternoon. Yes, Chairman Barham, Chairman Doyle, and members of the General Law Committee. For the record, my name is Dr. Richard Duncan, and I'm with the Spray Polyurethane Foam Alliance, or SPFA. I'm submitting testimony in regards to House Bill number 5908, an act requiring safety certification standards for the spray foam insulation industry. SPFA is the national 501c6 trade association representing the entire value chain of the spray polyurethane foam insulation industries. Our membership is comprised of manufacturers, distributors, contractors, and installers of spray foam, both for roofing and insulation systems. Spray foam insulation roofing is a dramatically growing industry. We've seen double-digit growth over the past 5 years, basically because of its high performance and value as an insulation and air sealing for buildings and homes, and it saves a considerable amount of energy. It also provides substantial employment across the U.S. We have tens of thousands of individuals working in small businesses across the United States, and hundreds of employees here in the state of Connecticut, all working for small business. And it's also important to note that these jobs are not ones that can be exported. In fact, the use of spray foam is recognized by a number of federal agencies. It's used in all types of government buildings and the like. At the same time, we recognize that health, safety, and quality are a concern for the industry, and the Spray Polyurethane Foam Alliance, along with its staff and numerous volunteers, have spent thousands of hours working with federal agencies, including the EPA, OSHA, and NIOSH, to develop a training program and certification program that is completely compliant with ISO certification standards. In fact, this certification program was launched just last week at SPFA's National Conference in Jacksonville, Florida. And we've gone through a number of test pilot programs, and so far over 800 tests have been taken within our program since its launch. We've seen significant interest, and we're going to be able to offer this program at many locations, not only across the United States, but in Connecticut as well. While we have our international certification, or our individual certification program is complete, we're still finalizing some details on contractor as well as distributor and supplier requirements. But we think that this program is going to be an effort that's going to recognize all spray foam stakeholders, including homeowners, general contractors, architects, home builders, state and federal government agencies, and to provide a baseline on health and safety along with performance and quality. In the short time that I have today to talk about our training program, I'd like to at least orient you to spray polyurethane foam, the work that SPFA is doing on our new certification program. And we are very interested in working with you more closely to fully highlight the aspects of this program, make it a resource to the great state of Connecticut, and we applaud your efforts to represent your various constituents. And again, while we endeavor to finish our work on the program, we also look forward toward complete deployment on a reasonable timeline and managed process with you, your agencies, and the business, homeowners, and building owners of Connecticut. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the committee? Senator Witkos.
Thank you. I missed a previous testifier on the subject matter, so excuse me if it's a redundant question that has been asked in the room before. as a manufacturer, is there anything that, I guess, a company that would install the spray foam that they would have be required to be certified by the manufacturer in order for them to purchase that product in its raw form?
Yes, several of our manufacturers, well, all of our manufacturers have training programs to train their specific contractors. Now, their training programs involve what we call equipment and materials. They're hands-on training. Our training goes beyond that. It requires this equipment and materials training from the manufacturer, but it also goes a step beyond to assure proper chemical health and safety, job site safety, and building science, and just general, application and quality for the industry. So we're setting standards industry-wide for that as well.
Is there anything in the in any other states that you're aware of in the building codes that require a certification by the applicator to install the spray foam?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much. Next speaker is Richard Beyer, Robert Heffernan, Rafi Podolsky, Ben Zimmer, Brian Johnson, Peter Foote, Bill Ethier. Is Richard Beyer here? Yes, he is.
Gentlemen, my name is Richard Beyer. I'm here to testify on behalf of what happened in my home regarding spray polyurethane foam. I brought this argument of training forward for specific reasons. My home was installed in 2010 by the previous speaker's standby Tyler Fisk company. And in 2010, the gentleman came in and sprayed the foam in my home. Most of the time, they were unprotected. They were not wearing protective equipment. My family was in the home. My children were in the home. My pets were in the home. I had no idea what we were breathing until later, when we started having health symptoms. The foam started cracking, disappearing into the air. I went to industry for answers, and they sicked their lawyers on me, told me to be quiet. I asked the Fisk family, what did they do to my home? What was my family exposed to? They wouldn't answer me. The product's saved. So they came to me and asked, what do we do? So I said, well, I think you need to get an air quality test. So he said, who do you suggest we hire? I said, well, why don't you go to Mystic Air Quality? Because the only place I knew about it. Mystic Air Quality came in, performed a test using a digital meter that was not calibrated specifically for the chemicals that should have been looked for. They looked for chemicals that industry already knew would not be detectable, like MDI, which is methylene diphenyl diisocyanate. These products are known to disappear after 72 hours and become non-detectable in the air of the home. They knew this. But what industry doesn't know, and what industry is not publishing, is the B-side component of spray polyurethane foam. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to speak with David Marlowe with Centers for Disease Control. Apparently, industry has been less than cooperative with the government when it comes to these chemical components, flame retardants, glycols, and other proprietary ingredients on the B side that they hide behind. I've talked to homeowners who have told me that their spray foam applicators told them, I can eat the foam, it's that safe, it contains soy. Because the soy is part of some spray foam manufacturers on the B side of the component. The critical factor here is the A side of the component, no matter who makes the foam, is the same. It's isocyanate, MDI. That product is very well known by OSHA to cause irreversible lung damage. Men have died from exposure to these chemicals. Young men are spraying these chemicals in our home today, and the industry has been allowed for years to self-regulate. The American Chemistry Council published on their website that the product is heavily regulated by OSHA. Further investigation into this, there's no regulation. There's no enforcement at all when we talk about our home. These products need to be regulated, and they need to be enforced, and licensing needs to be mandatory, not this voluntary basis of self-promotion from SPFA. SPFA is looking to train. I applaud them for that. but not fast enough. We're not talking about a product that was just reintroduced into society. Polyurethanes were invented by Otto Bayer back in the 1920s into 40s. It's not a new product. This is 2013. How did this chemical industry get away with this for so many years? Well, there's a reason. Everybody's promoting green energy today. I don't want to pay more for oil. Put the foam in. The purpose of the foam going in my home was to save money on oil. Now, we may come down with cancer in the next 10 years or tomorrow. We don't know. There's no medical studies. Yale University is currently studying the men that install these products. They are the lab rats of today, and that includes Tyler Fist's employees. To give you an example, I gave you a cut sheet of photographs. This is Tyler Fist's employee working in my home, unprotected, removing failed spray foam. When this product was removed from my home, it off-gassed significantly. I have asthma. The product should never have been put in my home, and you knew this, but you still installed it in my home. Then the product started cracking and disappearing. And you go to industry and you ask them questions, and they tell you you're crazy. Why is the insulation disappearing? You go to industry, they say it's not supposed to do that. The product's inert. Well, maybe it is inert. Well, the definition of inert, it doesn't change once it forms. This product was evaporating for me to breathe, and my children to breathe, my wife to breathe, my pets to breathe. And this firm stands their ground hiding behind industry standards, OSHA regulations. I'm a member of this organization. I'm a member of that organization. That's crap. These are lives they're playing with these chemicals. They are two-part chemicals. Part A, isocyanate. Part B, glycols and whatever else they're hiding in those chemicals. The state of California banned fire retardants. These fire retardants are now showing up in human blood. People living in homes, from their children, the adults. Cancer rates are on an all-time high. The federal government already said that the vast use of polyurethanes in today's market is growing at an astronomical rate with childhood asthma. And we're allowing this in the name of green energy. The EPA issued a bulletin in November 2011, said they are looking to propose a ban on all of these chemicals because they don't have any idea what these chemicals do to our home, or what they do to you, or your children, or your pets. But we're all promoting it because it's big business. It's billion-dollar industry we're talking about here. But we're talking about lives. Forget the price of oil. There's other means to insulate your home. There are safer alternatives out there, not just with these chemicals.
Thank you, Mr. Byer. Any questions from the committee? Senator Woodcoast.
Thank you for your well thought out and testimony. I kind of flipping through as you were speaking. Is there anything in OSHA regulations that you're aware of as to how it's applied? I see that the U.S. EPA is considering a ban or restricting the consumer insulations.
The very last page, sir, is the CDC investigation as well.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your time and your patience.
Thank you.